I've got a 2016 Mazda 6 GL that's got a navigation unit touchscreen with a mind of its own, commonly known as the ghost touchscreen issue. Let's see if we can fix this issue. For this task, we will need a 10mm socket with extension and some Phillips head screwdrivers. I'm going to use JIS screwdriver. I've got my small and medium sizes here. I'm not sure which one we'll need, so we've got both. JIS, Japanese, is much better than Phillips head because it won't cam out as you're turning, which means all the pressure can go straight to the screw, and you can bet your Mazda that these screws are Japanese as well. So a Japanese screwdriver for a Japanese screw. Alright, so we need to remove the dash first. That's going to be step one. Okay, I don't have very sharp fingernails, they're very short. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to grab it here and just yank it out. It's going to pop out, and then I'm slowly going to work my fingers across and start popping all the clips until it's all out. Let's have a look and see how hard that is. And note, I've glued my mobile phone holder into the vent. I'm going to leave that in there because the whole thing's coming out anyway. Let's see how hard this is. Got it. See? Just doing this with one hand. So just working our way across. Now, when we get over here, we might need to pop this one. Now, once we get over here, it gets a little bit hard. So if we pop this section here, it might be a bit easier. So pull that out, and that will help us to keep going. Got it. All right, let's have a look. The whole thing is just going to come out. And then what we can see is one clip here. And that clip is for the hazard lights. So the hazard lights, the 4 blinker, that's going to have to be removed. Okay, we pop that. And then this whole thing can be set aside. We don't need this. All right, now that the dash has been removed, we can get to the bolt. There's only one bolt we need to remove. It's that 10mm bolt right there. There it is. So we get the socket set with the extension, and make sure you don't lose that bolt. You don't want to drop it in down here, because if you do, you're probably going to lose it. So just make sure you're either using a magnet or it floats around here or down here. That's fine. Just don't let it drop down here. So we get our socket set. We put the extension on. $10mm. Make sure it's in the undo position, not the tighten position. It's got to be in the undo position. That way, all it's doing is undoing the nut. Let's use our socket set with extension and get that 10mm nut out now. So I'm just using a magnetic JIS screwdriver to bring it a bit closer to me without it letting it fall down, like I said. Now I'm going to use some little needle nose pliers to get it. Alright, we got the screw. That's important. We don't want to lose that screw. Alright, so it looks like we have to remove the screen and this section here as well. So notice that we've already got this popped from before. We just popped that right at the start. Okay, so it looks like 1, 2, 3 clips holding this in. We might just have to yank it out, and then after that we can see that the start stop button is still connected and a few other things might be connected. So let's see if we can pull that now. Alright, so the start stop button here is stopping us from pulling it out, so we're going to have to disconnect that cable. So we use the long nose pliers and we squeeze it from the back until we push the tab in, and then it will release. Okay, now we get that out. Okay, so let's have a look what we just did. That was in the back of the stop start switch. Okay, so we did a little bit of damage with the long nose pliers, but without squeezing that, it just wouldn't release. Okay, let's keep going with removing this multimedia unit. Alright, as we can see, there's a few more cables back here that all need to be removed. Let's remove these one by one until we get them all out. Okay, that one goes in there, the little one goes there. The grey one is underneath the little white one. The grey one is underneath the little white one. So white, grey, then we've got a big one. Then we've got a real big white one. Then we've got another big white one. And then we've got a blue one. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the whole thing is released. So we put a towel on the bench so that we don't scratch anything, and we can work on the unit any way we want and know that we won't scratch anything. Alright, so that's how it looks to us, but what we need to do is start removing some of these screws. Probably 1, 2, 3, 4. So down here we've got 2 more cables attached. We've got grey and we've got white. Let's squeeze and remove those. Grey and white. And then we can start undoing all these large Phillips head screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Need to remove those next. Crack them once they're cracked. Once they're cracked, then we can use our speed bit. So the short ones are on the main body and they've got the spring washer on them. But the long ones going to the screen, they don't have any washer. Alright, let's detach. Okay, so we can put this piece down to the side now, we don't need him. And now we can get to these 2 more down here. We need to remove these 2 now. And these ones are longer ones as well. Now we're getting very close to seeing this ribbon cable, which is somewhere in here. We just need to get the screen out. Whoop! I think we've got it. There we go. That's the unit. Just sits in there like that. Let's remove this piece. We don't need that anymore. All right. Let's have a look at the screen. Is there anything to undo? There's only 2 screws here. They look like very small JIS screws. So we're going to swap from the large to the small. Okay, these aren't done up very tight at all. We can probably go straight to the speed bit. Okay, and that is a self-tapper, not a machine screw like the other ones. Okay, just separate from the bottom. Just going to get a bit of plastic. See if this makes it easier. Oh yeah, we got it. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, and there we go. We've got the ribbon cable here. That's the ribbon we need to remove. Right, so we've got to get our little flat screwdriver, and we've got to lift that little black flap there. We've got to lift that into the up position. Up. Okay, once that's up, we can pull the cable out. Out. Then we put it back down. Okay, so that concludes all the steps required. Now it's just a matter of reversing the steps, putting everything back together with the screws, plugging all the pigtail cables back in, and everything should work. Put this one back on first. Click, click. Get the self-tappers. Okay, so to put it back together, you put the screen into the plastic and then put this piece of metal on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, we're going to reattach the amp and put those two cables back in with the 4 screws. Okay, then we put the screen back on top of the amp and put the 4 screws in, the 4 little ones with the spring washer. Okay, remember this guy's on that side. Once you've done up the 4 screws, remember to put your little cables back in. Once your cables are back in, the whole unit is ready to go back in the car. Remember to reattach this one, and then the other 5 cables need to go in as well. Over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember to reattach all the cables first before you slide it back in. We've got the head unit back in. The hardest one was the start-stop button because there's hardly any cable there at all. So you've almost got to get the whole unit back in all the way before you'll be able to squeeze and reconnect it. But once it's in, it's okay. Time to do the 10mm bolt up. And if you're wondering what this one's for, remember that's for our hazard lights, the 4 blinkers. This part is really tricky, trying to get the 10mm back in. I think it's tricky because it's not magnetic. So it's just kind of flopping around in there. I think if it was magnetic, it would be a lot easier. Alright, so before you put your trim back on, now's the time to get your keys and just check that everything's working. Car starts up. That was the first thing I wanted to see. But now that the car starts, I just want to check. Does my multimedia unit come on? Yes, it does. Turn the radio off. Captain's knob is working. Yep. We got navigation. Yep. So remember, this doesn't work now. We've disconnected it, which is fine. We're using the captain's knob only. Okay, and no more craziness. That's fantastic. That's job done. Okay, make sure everything is back into position and clicked in. Go all the way across and all the way back, top and bottom. And then you can put this one back in as well. Now with this one, you've got to get the material. You've got to get the material into position, back how it was. Want to make sure our hazard lights are still working. Yep. We're good. Job done. No more ghosts.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.